follow the same uh, template. In the first part, I'll ask you 20 questions and then we'll take a quick 5 minutes break and then we'll start with the second part, which is about the questions and answers, right? So any questions that you may have related to the course, related to the examination, right? There are changes that the PMI is doing now, which will be applicable from April, and the new exam pattern will be applicable from the 1st of July, right? So the PMI is updated in the ECO. We already got a preview of that in our instructor portal, all right? They have changed a lot of things when it comes to uh, the course material, right? So that has been updated, the version 4, all right? So that has been updated. But we officially cannot discuss anything as yet. But I can give you a hands up that the changes are coming, big time changes. So it's better that if you're preparing for the examination, try and target before April, right? So try and finish that by the month of March. Day before yesterday, three of my participants from the previous batches of the IMC passed the exam. Yesterday, a couple of more passed the exam. You might be watching those on my LinkedIn. I keep sharing those posts. So let's get it started. The IMC Q&A for the PMP. Ladies and gentlemen, the first part, the questions, starting with the question number 1. Okay, so let's read the question. So an agile product development initiative uses 2 week sprints. So the sprint time, 2 weeks. Mid-program, you onboard a vendor whose contractual deliverables are defined by fixed price modules aligned to 4 week batches. The difference in cadences cause the integration delays. What is the best way to align both the delivery models while preserving the agility and the vendor commitments? Read the options carefully and then answer the question. You can expect similar questions in the examination because in the new format, the PMI will focus more on the adaptive questions and less on the predictive questions. Your responses, please. Gopal goes Alpha and Vidya goes Charlie. Okay, so Charlie is a potential answer. That's what I can see. But then, what's wrong with going with the delta then? In that case, that's a very similar response, right? Keep both cadences independent and rely on integration at the end of each 4 week vendor module. What's wrong with this one? Abdul, yes, Charlie. Coordination issues may surface at the end. Yeah, that's too long of a time. You have to have a checkpoint in between. Just like in a Charlie, you introduce a hybrid cadence, internal 2 week sprint feed into every second sprint as a 4 week vendor batch with a synchronization sprint every fourth integration for the integration and the planning. I'll go Charlie. I'll go Charlie. Yep. So anybody who said Charlie was the correct answer. So that's your first question. Question number 2, ladies and gentlemen, a global defense program is structured as a series of a predictable work packages. So that's a predictive methodology project. Midway through, a new cybersecurity regulation requires all the work packages to include formal threat modeling sessions and 40% more testing time. The schedule is locked due to the contract milestones. The prime contractor suggests absorbing the extra testing as part of the quality assurance. You estimate this adds 18% cost and 10% schedule delay. What should you recommend? Read the question again if required. There is a new regulation that requires all work packages to include formal threat modeling sessions, and testing also should be increased by 40%. The timelines are firm, they are freezed. Alpha says you accept the prime contractor's suggestion, absorb the cost internally, and accelerate other work packages. Sorry, to maintain the schedule. Bravo is submitting a formal change request with the cost and the schedule impact. Propose a split in the regulatory compliance work into a parallel stream and ask the sponsor for the decision. Proceed as planned. That's Charlie. Implement the threat modeling only for further future work packages and document residual risk for the current packages. I don't think that's a good option. I wouldn't go, Charlie. Freeze all work until the regulation is fully analyzed and funded to avoid unmanaged risk. Charlie and Delta can't be the answers. So this is easy for you, actually. You have to have an answer between Alpha and Bravo. Gopal goes Alpha. He goes Alpha. Vidya goes Bravo. You see, during the classes, I said that any change request, because of any reason whatsoever, doesn't matter what, all right, goes into which process? Any change request because of any reason whatsoever. Kaushik, that goes to perform integrated change control. That's where the CCP sits. That means you have to have a formal change request. You do the impact analysis. If it is approved, then you implement those changes. My answer is Bravo. Submit the formal change request. Stick to the process. Stick to the process, right? So I'm going to go Bravo. Boom. Bravo is the answer. Yep. Gopal. Focus, buddy. Question number 3. A high visibility program uses mixed contracts. There is a T&M supplier is ahead of the schedule while the fixed price hardware supplier is behind because of a manufacturing defect. The PMO suggests moving some integration scope from the fixed price to the T&M to avoid the overall delay. What is the most program sound choice? Well, you be sending the PPT to us. If you want that, I can send that. But then I need to give that back to the team, and the team will send that to you because the participants here are from 10 different batches. So that's going to be very difficult for me to send that to 10 different batches, right? Okay. Answer the question, Vidya. Or otherwise, this whole session will go to the YouTube, so you can always go back and check. But then I can ask my team to send you that PPT. What do you think is the answer? Now look at delta. Do you think delta could be the answer? Replace the fixed price supplier with a higher cost, faster supplier under the emergency procurement. Okay, most of you got the answer. That is alpha. Reallocate the scope, move the items, the time-sensitive items to the T&M with a careful change control and adjust the budget accordingly. Why is that? Because you see, the T&M, the time and material contract, since it is not fixed time, right? It gives you more flexibility in terms of the statement of work, in terms of the scope of the project, right? So it has more flexibility. Whereas a fixed price contract, you give me 4,000, I'll give you four walls, right? So that's a fixed price, right? Now, if the manufacturing delays happen, and then it is, and the other thing that you should remember about the fixed price, maybe I have told you that back in the classes as well, that the fixed price contracts are the most dangerous contracts for the vendor or the contractor. Did I say that? Ever? They are very dangerous contracts. All right. So, yeah. Question number four. A regulatory body issues new privacy guidance requiring demonstrable data minimization. One of your live modules stores ancillary customer logs that are used by analytics but are not strictly needed for the core processing. Removing them will reduce analytics accuracy by about 6%, uh, but compliance with the guidance. So that's not a bad thing actually, right? Keeping them maintains analytics fidelity, but the risk regulation actions. What should you recommend? Read the question again. There is a new privacy guideline which requires the data minimization. There is one module which stores ancillary customer logs. Okay, I got the answer. Tell me the answer. Can alpha be an answer? That's a very potential answer. I can tell you that. Keep the logs until analytics retuning is complete to avoid losing the business value, then remove. Bravo is also a potential answer. Apply minimization only to the new data going forward. Leave the historical log intact. I will never go Charlie. Seek a formal temporary waiver from the regulatory while redesigning a long-term compliance analytics approach. Okay. Okay. Your answers, please. Abdul. Abdul goes bravo. That's what you have to think, Kumar. That's what you have to think. Just because it's an emergency thing, would you start doing only for the current data, leave the historical data? What are you suggesting me? If you are, if you're supporting Charlie, is it? Is that what you're doing? Okay. Maintains analytical fidelity, but risks the regulatory action. Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm not feeling very well since yesterday night, so I apologize for that. All right. So the answer is keep the logs until the analytics retuning is complete to avoid losing the business value and later remove them. You see, they are not required for the core processing. Okay. But then you have to keep them because you have to do the retuning to, so because there would be a 6% kind of a accuracy variance, uh, you know, if you remove them, right? So keep them, do the reconciliation, the retuning, and then later, when once that part is done, then you remove them. So Bravo is a better choice. It preserves the current business value while allowing the planned recommendations. Okay. By the way, business value reminded me. Uh, the changes that the PMI is coming up with, one of the core areas which is included in the new course, the area which is included is the business sustainability. Okay. So the artificial intelligence, business sustainability. These are the two major core areas, although there's a third one as well, but that skipped my mind. Right. So there are a lot of changes which are apparently happening. In fact, the PMI is changing the whole configuration of the ECO. All right. Hey, you remember in the current ECO, what percentage is contributed by the process domain? How much is the process domain in current? 50%, right, Kaushik? In the next ECO, this is going to be 41%. That's going to be 41%. Okay. And how much is the people's domain? The people is 42. Now it is going to be 33%. Okay. So the PMI reduced 9% from the process and 9% from the people. So 18% got added into the business environment. So the business environment, which was initially only 8%, is now going to be 24%, 26%, actually, 26%. So almost a quarter of the questions will come from the business environment. So that's a shift. How many domains in three domains, similar domains, but the percentage varies because this current ECO, the current ECO is more focused towards the people's domain and the process domain. 50%, 42%. These are the major chunks. And the business environment was only 8%, right? The committee at the PMI thought that, you know, people are actually not taking business environment very seriously because of that. And the results of the examination was an evident proof of it, right? Because a lot of people were scoring very less in the business environment domains and they were scoring more in the process of the people's domain because that's the area of the focus for them. That's where they were, working more while preparing for the examination. Now, so the business environment was not getting the respect that it deserves, right? So the PMI did this change, reduced 8% from the people's domain, 8% from the, sorry, 9% from the people's domain and process domain, put together makes it 18, added that to the business environment. So now it is almost, the whole ECO should be the focus area, right? So that is one of the changes. Question number 5. Earned value matrices today shows the planned value 380,000, right? No, that's not 300, 3.8 million actually, right? And the earned value is 3.2 million and the actual cost is 3.4 million. The sponsor demanded in Q&A all are process domain mostly. The very first question was an agile question, if you recall. We are standing at question number 5. Oh, you're talking about this Q&A or what Q&A are you talking about? Taujik? Yeah, I don't know if you noticed it. The first question was from the HL and the third question was from the hybrids. Yep. So it's a fair mix. So the earned value matrix is today, the plan value is 3.8 million. The earned value is 3.2 million. Actual cost is 3.4 million. The sponsor demands a recovery without increasing the budget. What is the most defensible immediate step? Tell me. So the earned value is 3.2, the actual cost is 3.4, and the planned value is 3.8. So tell me, what's your CPI here and what's your SPI? Both are less than one. I know that. The sponsor demands recovery without increasing the budget. What you should do? Re-baseline the schedule to remove the pressure from the teams and reset the expectation. I don't know if this is a good idea. Approve contingency release to hire temporary contractors to restore the PV alignment. Can that be done? Do you think Delta can be done? I mean, there are situations in the project where you might need to go with the Delta, actually. Okay, I'll give the answer. The answer is Delta. Did I say that? The pragmatic, immediate action where the smallest governance friction is targeted contingency. That's why Delta. I told you that could be a very potential answer. Because you see, when you were planning the project, you must have planned those contingencies. Now, since if you look at your CPI numbers, although they are less than one, but they are not that less, right? That happens to be around what, 0.92? Do the maths for me. 3.2 divided by 3.4. How much do you get? 0.94, is it? So it is less than one, but it's not very less. Okay. So if you have enough contingencies with you, you pull those contingencies, put that into it, fast track that, get it back on the track. And that's why I said there are situations where you might have to use those, right? So you might have to use those things. Okay. So please explain, Professor, how less accurate for option alpha and when you will use it. Okay, you see, the alpha says you calculate the CPIs and the SPIs and you present the EAC scenarios for recovery trade-offs. Now, when it comes to recovery trade-offs, right? When it comes to those, so trade-off is not considered as a good option until that's the only option. Okay, so we may have to fast track or crash, but then it will take that amount of money. Please approve that amount of money, right? So the last option for any project manager is to reach out for the management reserves. Okay. So if there is a dire situation where you see nothing else could happen, you might go and say that. You see, rebaselining any project, let me ask you, when you are in the middle of your project, would you ever want to rebaseline a project? Is that a good thing to rebaseline the project? Yeah. When you rebaseline, when you have more scope element coming in, right? When you have, so you just don't want to rebaseline just because you're delaying the project, right? So you delay the project by 20 days and you go back and you say, Mr. Management, let's just rebaseline that. That makes the variances as zero. That means you are always on time, isn't it? You're always on time, right? You see, that reminded me of something. Here in India, all right? So I wouldn't name since this is a recorded line, all right? There's a bus service, the public transportation bus services uh, from the state where I come from, all right? Now, inside every single one of these buses, right above the driver's seat, there is a line written. You know what it reads? You know what that reads? It reads, "You are late, not me." Okay? So, why? Because what these operators are doing, they change the time as per their convenience. So if the departure, the scheduled departure was about, let's say, 1400 hours, right? But if they reached at 14 and 10, right, they'll say that's the departure time. 14:10 is the departure time. So I'm not late. You are late, right? So it's never a good thing in project management, is it? So what you have to do is you have to look at the available options that we can immediately put in to get the schedule back or get back to the cost variances, makes them zero, and the schedule variance makes them zero. All right. So that's why delta. Question number six. A multi-vendor integration is slipping because two critical vendors use conflicting authentication schemas. There is a conflict in those schemas that they are using, or schemas, simply to put, is kind of algorithm that you use. Simply call it algorithm, right? Your architect proposes, now that's again an HL question. If somebody who asked me this question is again an HL, your architect propose introducing a mediator service that translates the schemas but wants to add a small runtime cost and additional support obligations. The vendor resists changes to their contracts while the course align, which course best aligns with program delivery and long-term maintainability? Ah, good question. This time, when I was, you know, designing the questions, I just thought of making them a bit tricky rather than keeping them straightforward. What do you think? Which course aligns best with the program delivery and long-term maintainability? Alpha is also a very potential answer, just so you guys know. Okay, I'll let you guys think. I was about to say something, then I stopped myself. Hey guys, is my voice clear to you? Am I audible to you, loud and clear? Okay. Okay. So your answer has to be between Alpha and Bravo, isn't it? Because Charlie and Deltas can't be the answer. Now tell me which option you're going to go for maintainability and program delivery. The session questions seems to be more tricky. Yeah. Because when you have to design 20 questions, you can put in your whole brain into it. When you have to design 180, then the focus goes here and there, right? So that's why you will see a few very easy questions, a few tough questions in uh, in those simulation exams. Okay, so the answer is, of course, alpha. You insert a mediator service as an internal integration layer, document the operational ownership and the service level agreements, and negotiate minor contract amendments to support the scope. Minor contract amendments, which is fair. It's still kind of a win-win for both the vendors and the vendors and the performing organization. That's the only good option if you want to have long-term maintainability and sustainability, right? So it's kind of an operational bridge that you're making that preserves the vendor deliveries. Question number seven. A $95 million digital transformation program is migrating customer identity flows to a centralized IAM. Midway, three regional teams reports that the centralized IAM introduces unacceptable latency for time-sensitive authentication in their markets. The central vendor recommends a global rollout path to re-architect token flows. The regional leads propose local coaching proxies that require customization contractors extra cost and extra governance overhead, of course. The sponsor wants to keep the original launch date. What should you do? Think about it. Rather than IAM, just call it the centralized database. Okay, if IAM is giving you the trouble, centralized database, everything flows into that database. So there are three regional teams support that reports that the centralized databases introduce unacceptable latency for time-sensitive authentications in their markets. The central vendor recommends a global rollout pause to re-architect the token flows. He said, stop everything, re-architect the token flows. The regional leads propose local coaching proxies that requires customized contractors, which increases the cost and the time, governance overheads as well. The sponsor wants to keep the original launch dates. What should you do? If that was my project, I would look for a new job. I can tell you that. Right? Why do I have to work in such a project? It's a very complex project. Hey, I'm just joking, right? Hanukkah. Okay, Deltas, Bravos, mixed responses here. Charlie's even. So I've got Delta, Bravo, Charlie, all three. Anybody with the Alpha as well? If you think Alpha could be the answer. Approve local coach and catching, not call. What's wrong with me? Proxies for the effective regions immediately document deviations, and schedule a parallel re-architecture with the vendor. Oh, potential answer. Actually, that's a potential answer. Pause the entire global rollout until the vendor completes a standardized re-architecture to avoid the ad hoc fragmentation. Proceed with the global rollout, but disable the advanced IAM feature in latency sensitive regions until a standardized fix is available. Charlie, a potential answer. Okay. Escalate to the steering committee and request a deviation between the scheduled errands and architectural purity. Okay. Now tell me, final answers. Kashik, Alpha. Okay. So the problem is happening that the regional teams are saying that this centralized database where all the things are going that has a latency. right? It, the latency is there for the time-sensitive authentications in the markets, right? And that is impacting their markets. Centralized vendors say stop everything, stop the rollout, right? The sponsor don't want to do it. What should you do? The answer is you proceed with the global rollout, but disable the advanced features which are producing that latency for now, right? And then go with the standardized fix because the sponsor don't want to delay the launch date. He wants to go ahead with that. So the best option out of these three is going with the Charlie. Okay, that's why I said Alpha is a potential answer, Charlie is a potential answer. Question number 8. A major stakeholder requests a late scope addition. Why not Delta? Okay, let's go back. Escalate the steering committee for what? So what is the job of the steering committee? Tell me. Get in. What is the job of the steering committee? Anybody? Open question. The job of the steering committee is to take a decision on what? It is to take a decision on what? Should we remain in the same phase? Should we move ahead to the next phase? Should we move ahead with the modification or should we just terminate the project right here? Are these the things? Yes. Then why would you go with the steering committee when the question has nothing to do with it? You are not going from one phase to the other phase. You're not doing a steering committee meeting. You're not presenting those deliverables and asking for a go, no go. All right. It is a fix that you have to provide to launch the product on the same date. That's the question. Correct? Question number 8, ladies and gentlemen. A major stakeholder requests a late scope addition that increases the technical depth and will push the schedule by 2 sprints, but promises long-term strategic values. So for now, there's a push of 2 sprints, but long-term strategic value, what is the most PMI aligned way to process this request? That should be easy for you, actually. That's again an age-old question. Again, an age-old question. Who was that? Kumar? Did you ask me? A lot of questions are like predictive. You see how many age-old and hybrid questions I included this time? Not me, Professor. Kumar's like, that's not me, Professor. Abdul goes Alpha. Add the change to the backlog, run an impact analysis, and present the quantified options for the governance. Okay. Okay. Approve immediately to capture strategic value. Reject the request to protect the baseline commitments. Implement as a fast track spike during the current sprint to evaluate afterwards. Okay. Delta is a potential answer. I can tell you that. Okay. Although it looks small, it is still a very potential answer. What is the most PMI aligned way to process this request? You see, the moment you say the PMI aligned value, that is simply to focus on the process, the SOP, which is defined by the PMI. If there is a change, do the impact analysis. First the analysis, then the action. Correct? First the analysis, then the action. All right? You follow that. Simple. That's the key. Question 9, ladies and gentlemen. A program's final release must coincide with a regulatory fill-in. On final testing, you detect one high severity defect. There we go. That's bad. The vendor proposes a hot patch post file. The business sits on file in any way due to the external date. What is your best action? Look for a new job. Trust me. Okay. Answers, please. You detected a high severity defect. A lot of you are going bravo, but then you are not reading the last part of it, are you? Only with the stakeholders sign off. So you do the file in, then put the patch in, and then take the stakeholder sign off, right? Okay. But there is nothing that you can assume. So Charlie can never be the answer. Can that be? All right. It is actually made easy now. Okay. The only potential option out of these four options is to go with the Bravo. I mean, that's the only option that makes sense. Because you cannot delay the filing because of the external date that goes out, alpha goes out. Proceed with filing and assume the vendor's hot patch will mitigate. You assume nothing in project management, not at least the actions. You cannot predict that the vendor's patch will fix everything. How do you know? Okay, so Charlie can never be the answer. Canceling the release is never an option. And rescheduling the regulatory file, and there's a date on which you have to file that. So it goes out. The only possible option here is to go with the Bravo. What I did, I used the method of elimination. You understand the method of elimination? When you have a confusion to finding the best answer, eliminate all the wrong answers. Okay, and you'll get to the correct answer. This is what I did. Question number 10, ladies and gentlemen. When the transition is required mid-program, the outgoing vendor refuses to provide full documentation citing the IP concerns. That's very common. Have you seen vendors not sharing the full information to the new vendor? They are actually citing IP concerns, but that's not the actual concern. You know what the actual concern is? That I'm losing the business and somebody else is getting the business, right? So why should I make it easy for him? So that's what generally happens. A legal review will take 8 weeks. Meanwhile, the incoming vendor cannot start without the artifacts. What's your best path? Okay. Real life project scenario, ladies and gentlemen. That happens very often. I have seen that happening in my projects many times, not once, but many times. 8 weeks. That's a lot of time. That's 2 months, right? Hassan goes Delta, Harsh goes Delta. Okay, tell me, can alpha also be a potential answer here? You're suggesting both the correct things, actually, if you notice. You're saying rather than 8 weeks, let's just try and do that in 6 weeks. Let's expedite the review, right? And the second thing is for temporary measures, just maintain both of them parallelly. Now somebody just went, Charlie, proceed with outgoing vendor until the documentation is fully received before involving incoming vendor. Again, a potential answer, but there is a problem with that. I'll not discuss that problem as yet. I'll not discuss that, but I see a problem with this thing. Okay, so what's the answer, ladies and gentlemen? The answer is to authorize the partial handover, right? Anonymized documentation under the NDA, the non disclosure agreement that you can set up between the two vendors to accelerate the onboarding. Okay. A lot of you actually went Delta, and Delta was a very potential answer. What's wrong with the Charlie now? Tell me. I said that it could be a potential answer, but there is a problem with this. What do you think? What problem I'm referring to? What problem I'm referring to? Is it about the scheduling? More than that, it's about that when you allow the current vendor to continue until the documentation is fully received, and then only you can involve the incoming vendor. Trust you me, this existing vendor, all right? You're telling him that, okay, so we don't wish to continue with you. We have a new vendor coming in. We'll work with them. So this vendor knows that until the customer gets the whole documentation from me, he'll not be able to bring the new vendor on board. Will he ever do it? Everything is risky, but then what else is the option that you have? We'll mitigate those risks. We'll plan for those risks. Just like you identified that risk right now, Umar, right? The project manager will also identify the same risk. He'll plan a contingency for that. He'll look at what are the reviews that I have, what are the reserves that I have in terms of schedule, in terms of cost. He'll try and adjust that. Yeah, that's how the project happens, right? Uh, can you guarantee that there will be a project in which you will plan it so perfectly that you'll be able to identify all the risks right at the time of planning, and then during the execution there would be no further risks? Yeah, can you guarantee that? That's your answer, brother. That's your answer. I'll tell you. Uh, you know, so my mentor, I mean, 25, 26 years ago, you know, once we were discussing project management, you want to hear a story, a 2 minute story? Yeah. Because he said something that I still remember after 25, 26 years, right? So we were talking, he's a very senior guy, very famous in project management domain. So me and him were sitting and we were talking about the risks and the changes. We were talking about these two things, the changes and the risks. And he said a fantastic thing. He said, Sachin, when it comes to the changes, because of the risks, I was saying that, I believe we can give some more time to the planning of the risks and, plan the responses properly. And we are always prepared that if that's the risk, then I'm going to do this thing, right? So I'll rather give it more time before I jump onto the execution, right? Because back in our time, the PMIs and the PMP, it was all predominantly predictive methodology. I'm talking about 2001, 2002, talking about those years, right? So it was all about predictive methodology projects. No agility, no hybrids, nothing. 100% of the exam was based on the predictive, right? So we were having this discussion, and then my mentor said, "That's such an, I'll tell you something. Let us say you planned a project in which you said, I'm going to start the project here and I'm going to finish the project here. And during the journey, I'm going to achieve these deliverables on these particular dates. And if I'm able to do that, if I'm able to start the project here and finish that here and cover all the deliverables as per my plan throughout the life of the project and deliver the project right on time, Sachin, you know what that means?" I said, "What that means, sir?" He said, "It means I'm not a project manager." And I was surprised when he said it. He said, "I'm not a project manager then." Guess what he said? Who I am. You know what he said? Guess that. He said, I'm not project manager. In that case, I'm a dash. Can you fill in the blank? Think about it. He said, Sachin, in that case, I'm the god, right? He said, then I'm the god. I'm no human. Okay. If I can start a project right here, finish the project right here, cover every single deliverable exactly as per what I planned, and deliver a 1 year project right on bang on time, then I'm God. I'm not project manager. Because only the God can do that. Only the God can plan so perfect, anticipate in everything that on that day my vendor will fall ill. On that day he's going to default. On this day my people will go on vacation, right? On this day the rain will happen for the next 3 days and will not be able to work. If if I can plan so perfectly, only God can do that, right? So it doesn't matter how good or how bad you are as a project manager. If you're working on the projects, ladies and gentlemen, trust you me, you will encounter changes. You agree on that? Doesn't matter how good. You may be the best project manager in the world. You will still have those changes because you see, there are hundreds and hundreds of those things which are not under the direct control of the project manager. I mean, you can plan the contingency. I take that for an argument, right? You can plan the contingencies, but then still, you know, there are things which goes over and beyond the contingencies, right? So if you read an ancient document written here in India about 5,100 years ago, you know what that document I'm referring to? That document is called the Bhagavad, right? In that, Lord Krishna himself said, the most constant thing in the world is the change. The change is the only constant. You heard about that? The change is the only constant. So there will be changes, right? So we have to have these strategies in place and we have to have this flexibility to accommodate to those changes. That's where the tolerances and the thresholds and all of those concepts that we talked about during risk management and further when we came down to the change management. Yeah, I know that, Gopal. I know that, brother. Well, thank you for telling this to the rest of the world. So, question number 11. Your program's benefits register shows an upcoming quarter where several benefits align the peak value window. However, two streams will not deliver the necessary capabilities due to resourcing and the procurement delays. The sponsor asks you to make it happen. It's a demand, right? Make it happen, Sachin. Right? Anyways, which path most responsibly uh, pursues the value? Tell me. Two streams will not deliver the necessary capabilities due to the resource and procurement delays. Will not in the future, in that quarter, which is coming up. Sponsor says, I don't know, make it happen. Hey, you know what? I made a good question, but I then made the answers too easy, isn't it? I take that. I actually made them too easy because for the first 10 questions, I was going very tough on you. I just thought of making it easy. That's an easy one. Okay. The only possible potential answer is alpha. That's what it is. Now, I kept the initial question tough, but this question, the answers are easy on this one. Because you can simply use the process of elimination to eliminate all the rest of the three. The only possible, practical answer here is to go with the alpha. So yeah. Question number 12. A cross-border program encounters conflict in legal requirements. That's very common again. Country X requires the data residency, while the country Y mandates centralized analytics in a single region. Resources to re-architect are limited. Which approach most prudently balance the legal compliance and delivery? Another age-old question. Oh, that's a good question, actually. One country requires data residency, while the other country mandates centralized analytics in a single region. Anybody? Alpha is a potential answer. I'll not say it's the answer. It is a potential answer. And so is the Bravo. So is the Bravo. Yeah, somebody said Charlie in the chat window. I'll say you have to choose between Alpha, Bravo, and Delta. But then there is something related to Bravo, but I'll not discuss that. You first answer the question, then we'll talk about it. The answer is Bravo. Okay. Now, what I wanted to talk about Bravo was that a few of you might think, a few of you, not all of you, a few of you might think that the Bravo suggests that you go with the centralized analytics immediately and then you negotiate the exemptions. How do you know that those exemptions will be approved by the country X? That may be, you know, one thing that might cross your mind. But then if you go back and read the question, right? The country X requires the data residency while the country Y mandates the centralized analytics in the single region, right? So maybe when we negotiate, we might keep the region as the country X. And that's where we centralize because this is what the country Y mandates and the country X want the data to be in that area, right? So we can at least negotiate on that. That if you do not allow the data to go out, let us just centralize everything here on your data servers, right? So that could be one of the negotiations. All right, moving on to the question number 13. Mid project, you discover that the benefit realization schedule linked to the user adoption was based on a 40% uptake rate. The current pilot data shows only 15%. That's trouble. I can tell you that right now. The business manager insists the baseline stands because growth will happen, quote unquote. What should you do? So expected was a 40% uptake rate. The current pilot project shows only 15%. What should you do? Alpha, potential answer. Just thinking out loud, can Charlie be an answer? Because when you were doing the study during the classes, we said at the end of the day, so when we do the project retrospective, that's where for the tangible benefits, we go with the numbers. For the intangible benefit, we go with the subjective analysis, the qualitative risk analysis, right? Abdul goes, bravo. Accept the low uptake and reduce benefits expectations accordingly without change. Okay, okay. Well, the answer is proceed with the original rollout. And no, I messed up, actually. Mm-mm, I messed up. The answer is to revalidate assumptions and develop a revised benefit realization plan with the user adaptation. Okay. And update forecast and then align the expectations of the sponsor. Go back to the sponsor, tell him. So that's a wrong answer. That should be alpha here, right? I messed up while I was writing. So yeah, I take that on me. But on the records, the alpha is the correct answer here. Okay. So based on the results of the pilot, I can always go back, revise my benefit realization, can go to the product owner and tell him that, okay, so we ran a pilot, this is what we got. We were expecting, it was an assumption that we can get 40%, but it comes out to be between 15 to 20%, right? So now this is since just a pilot project right now, right? We can always take a call if the sponsor want to continue with that, with the full project. Okay, so we can still take a call. Okay, question number 14. You have a hybrid or the agile, sorry, hybrid agile predictive program. The agile upsell team wants to defer documentation to speed the releases, citing lean practices. The compliance team mandates full traceability for the audits. What is your best immediate step? That should be an easy question for you to answer, by the way. It should be an easy question for you guys. The agile teams, they never like documentation. They never like it. Predictive teams, they love documentation, right? Okay. The answer is alpha, straightforward. You create a minimal documentation baseline for the agile releases so that they could go with the releases on time and require a full traceability only for the compliance critical features. The features that requires compliances, we're going to go with more documentation. For the releases, we're going to go with the less documentation. Both of the teams are happy. The predictive team is happy that we have a proper documentation for the audit purpose, and the HR team is happy because they don't want to go so much into the documentation. They can focus on the release, right? Question number 15. Your program is integrating legacy systems, the historical systems, across 4 continents. During the deployment, a critical interface fails in the two region due to time zone differences combined with the contract renewals. The vendor requests payments to expedite a fix. You must decide how to proceed without delaying the value delivery. Good question. Okay. The answer: hire a third party integrator immediately, split the work, and negotiate the cost sharing. Why? Because the original vendor is not going to do that. He is demanding payments for that. Right? Now, I cannot do the full payment because that's a lot of money to be paid. Now, for now, I'll hire a third party, then streamline everything and move forward because I don't want to delay the delivery. Okay, that's one thing with the HR. If you recall, we actually had a question on that during the classes as well. That when it comes to the predictive methodology projects, the risks are more related to the cost, whereas when it comes to the HR, they are more related to the schedule of the project. No, we are not neglecting the vendor. Who said we are neglecting the vendor? Where it says neglecting it, I said to restore the momentum and keeping the leverage of the original vendor who was working with us, right? If we go in parallel paths, balance for the schedule cost and the vendor management, all three could be achieved by this. Read the explanation that I've given. This approach split the risks, restores the momentum, maintains the leverage on the original vendor, and creates the parallel paths to balance the schedule, the cost, and the vendor management. That's again an assumption. Come on, find a new vendor and I'm going to that's just a assumption that how much time it would take, right? So it might take a week or so, but then it is better, you know, to continue with the same vendor, paying him the whole payment. So I don't think, and that's so much of a risk because this interface actually failed in two reasons, right? So you have to have somebody who's located locally to maintain those things. The centralized vendor might not be able to do that. Question number 16. An agile release. Professor wondered what is pragmatic means. Pragmatic, which could impact. That is what it is. Okay. Anything that could impact. An agile release trained repeatedly fails system demos because of a cross team integration test is flaky. Root cause is intermittent translations between microservices due to inconsistent schema versions. And that's again very common. That's again a very common thing if you work on HL projects, right? Which plan best fixes the underlying issues and prevent a recurrence? You wanted agile and hybrid questions? I gave you more than half of the agile and hybrid questions. I was trying to align that with the latest changes which are coming in the PMP exam. This is what you can see for all the 180 questions. Most of the questions are adaptive and hybrids, and less questions are predictive in nature. Well, bravo is a very potential answer, Kaushik. Isn't it? But then can that be achieved By increasing the demo cadences. Okay, good answers actually. It's going to be some effort for you guys to select the right answers. These are all good answers. Hey, Joanne, you are in the class. I just saw you now. Did you join late? Yes, I did. Okay. Okay, guys. Coming back to the answers. What do you think? What's the answer? Delta? What about rest of us? Final answers. Central integration team to manually coordinate schema update across the team. Ah, yeah, potential answer. So the root cause for that failure is intermittent translations between the microservices due to inconsistency in schema versions. Somebody is using version 1, the other one is using version 1.1. So the updated definitions are not a part of the version 1, which are there in version 1.1. And that's because of that, those microservices are failing. Okay. If I was you, I'll go with the alpha. Introduce strict API, the application programming interface. Versioning, that means the version controllers with backward compatibility, legacy systems compatible with the current version, right? A schema registry, contract tests in continuous improvement, CI approaches, and the cross team integration gate before the demos. That is the most prominent answer to go ahead with. Okay. Question number 17. A vendor transition reveals that the configuration artifact requires for support were never delivered. There we go. The vendor cites intellectual property concerns. He said, that's my IP. I cannot share that. Right? The business cannot accept operational downtime. Which approach best secures continuity while protecting the IPs? So the vendor is moving out, somebody else is coming in, or maybe he's just moving out, right? Now the support team says that we never got those artifacts from the vendor. Vendor said, I cannot give those to you because that's my IP. So in simple terms, it's kind of a technology transfer. They don't want to do 100% technology transfer. I mean, if you just want to understand it like this. Did you read the option, Charlie? Did you read that? Build operational capability from scratch using reverse engineering to avoid the IP. They said make it your own, right? Just re-engineer that, reverse engineer that. Pay for extended vendor support and accept operational dependency until the contract end. A. potential answer. Give me your final answers now. Gopal loves Bravo. This is the 10th time that Gopal gave Bravo as an answer to any question. Today, out of 17 questions. For every single question, Gopal gives Bravo. Yes, Gopal. I'm counting your answers, buddy. All right. So the answer is alpha, of course. Kumar, I'm counting everyone's answers. Okay. So the answer is, of course, alpha. You negotiate an NDA. Just sign an NDA. You say, all right, so you don't want to give us the IP. That's fair. We respect that, right? At least for the procedures for the support team, let's just at least explain to them that what are these artifacts and how they work, and we can sign an NDA. We'll not share this with anybody, right? And that's how you can move forward in this. Question 18. Your own value management report shows the planned value is 2 million. Earned value is 1.6 million. Uh, the actual cost is 1.7 million. Uh-uh. Okay. Sponsor demands you recover the schedule without raising the cost. What is the most defensible recommendation you can make now? Okay, tell me, can delta be an answer? I'm just I'm just asking. I'm not saying that it is an answer. It is not an answer. I'm just saying, can delta be an answer? Now, for this scenario in particular, even alpha could be a potential answer. For the previous similar scenario, there was not an answer, by the way. For this one, it may be. Okay, so the answer is that should be delta. I again messed up. That's my mistake. Anybody who said delta is the right answer. Okay. Re-baseline the schedule to match the current performance and remove the pressure from to recover. That's the same story that I told you. You are late, not me, right? So can't do it, right? So the answer is actually delta. So if you said delta, okay. If you thought delta was the answer, then you're right. Question 19. During integration testing, two vendors deliver connectors that behave correctly in isolation but generate race conditions under the realistic load. The vendors blame each other and refuse to own the issue. You must provide a path to resolution without replacing the vendors. What is the best immediate step? Tell me. The SIT is going on, system integration testing. Okay? It's an IT project. Uh, isn't that an easy answer? Looking at the options. Okay. The answer is, hey guys, just give me one sec. My bell rang. The answer is alpha. Okay, so a few answers. I actually messed up in the answer part. The answer is alpha, actually. I'll just come back. Just give me one sec. All right, am I audible? Yes. Okay, so what's the biggest word in project management? Tell me. What's the biggest word in project management? Build the consensus. Correct? That's the biggest word. But hang on. I actually did not mess up. Let me just read this again. Nope, I didn't mess up. It is actually Bravo. Tell me why. Tell me why. That's the correct answer, actually. The PMI is saying that all of these are the correct steps. All four of them are the correct steps. But the last line says, what is the best immediate step? You must provide a path to resolution without replacing the vendors. What is the best immediate step? So I missed out that last word. I write it right now. Okay. While we have to build the consensus, while we have to find a way in which there is a win win, right? We definitely have to do that. But then, what is the current scenario? The scenario is that there is a but do not know which vendor is. Oh, we will do the testing on that. We'll do so. We are not saying that. So in isolation, the both are working well. The problem is when you integrate them. So this connector is working fine here. This connector is working fine here. In isolation, they both are working fine. You see, the connectors that behave correctly in isolation but generate race conditions under realistic load. So when the realistic load is applied, the load testing, when that is happening, that's where the race condition is happening. Right? So none of them is faulty actually. They both are working. None of them is faulty. The problem is with the interface when they come together, right? So we can always work on them. So for now, you isolate the faulty connector in production. So which one is not accepting in SIT? Which one is not working properly, right? Using the feature flags and reassign traffic to the vendor until a fix is delivered. And how do you deliver the fix? After this step, go immediately to the alpha. And that's what I was about to tell you, that you have to sit together with the vendors and see where the root cause is and take an action on that. But what you're going to do immediately right now, if you go into that analysis, would you let the rest of the project delay? Would you want to do that? So for now, just start with a fix. You see, there is a difference between a risk and an issue. Tell me, is that a risk? Is that an issue? Is this situation a risk or is it an issue? That's an issue, right? So what do you do for risks and what do you do for issues? Tell me. For the risk, you plan the responses. For issues, you do what? You plan the workaround. Correct? For the issues, you plan the workarounds, immediate actions. Let's put it simply like this. So this is a wall, right? So we made this wall so that the brickwork, we did the brickwork today, right? Now, since the weather conditions are such that every evening almost very strong wind is blowing from the north to south. Okay. Now this wall is facing south. So it is happening every single day. Now, is there a risk that it may happen today as well, and it's a wet brickwork, and it might, you know, uh, because of that air pressure, it might fall. It's a risk, right? Now, for the risk, I need to plan the responses, right? Now, what's going to be my risk response plan? And my risk response plan it could be that, I may, on both sides of this wall, I may apply some sort of a support, right? So, just in case, say here, so just in case this wall comes down, it stops it from falling. That could be a risk response strategy. But tomorrow, when I came to the site, I saw that overnight the winds were so strong that it fall now. What you going to do now? You need to take an action. You have to again rebuild that immediately. You have to start working on that immediately, right? So what you do is you first go with when there is an issue, you go with the immediate action, and then you see, hey, what was the root cause? Why did that happen? Right? What are the things that we can do? So I'm going to follow the pattern Bravo, then the Alpha. I hope that makes sense. Question number 20, ladies and gentlemen. The last question. The global payments program must meet two competing constraints. One, a regulator requires additional margin that will add 12% to transaction latency, right? So the transactions will be delayed by 12%. And two, the board demands zero impact to customer experience for the upcoming campaign. Okay, now these are conflicting requirements, by the way, right? You have 1 month to decide which action best balances the compliance and the business needs. Think about it. Just like MasterCards and Visas, similar to that, it's a global payment program. It has two constraints. One, it should have additional margin, but then increases latency by 12%. And two, the board demands there should be zero impact on the customer experience. The moment the customer swipes, the transaction should happen. He should receive the message that, okay, the transaction happened. You have 1 month to decide which option best balances both the compliance and the business needs. Can delta be an answer? Rather than testing all the transaction, can we start by doing 10% of the transactions goes into the login, and then later, once the campaign gets over, then scale it to 100%. Could that be one of the options? I'm just thinking. Okay. The answer is the obvious answer, right? You implement the login in a targeted set of non-latency sensitive flows for now, all right? Run side-by-side comparison and phase the further rollout based on the impact and the mitigation. Okay, so these were the 20 questions. So tell me, what's your score? How many correct answers that you gave out of 20? Tell me your scores. Umar got 13, 14, 14, 16. Good. 7 out of 9. Okay. That's 16 out of 20 then, Manzoor. But the initial 10 questions were tougher as compared to the last 10 questions. 13 Abdul. 8 Jignesh. But then I don't blame Jignesh. Jignesh is still have to complete the course. Yes, Jignesh? You still have a class to go? So many questions. Yes? Many questions that you have no idea about for now. Correct? Earned values could be one example of that. Ganem. Ganem got 9. Okay. To be honest, not very promising scores. Anybody who scored 16 or more is a good score. Anything between 12 and 15, you can still do it. If you have less than 12, that's an area of concern. You have to go back, identify the gaps in your knowledge. You have to read that. Okay. So, yes. Kritika, how many you got? Kritika got 10. Okay. So, these were the 20 questions for this simulation. Now, what we're going to do is we can take a quick break of 5 minutes. And after that, so we still have like 25 minutes to go. We'll just take a 5 minutes break. We'll come back and I'll take your questions. But this session, I really had because I just came to know day before yesterday the PMI is changed in the format in the examination. I have to align to that. So these 20 questions are absolutely aligned to how you're going to see the real exam now. I told that yesterday in my classes day before that this is going to be tougher to pass the exam in 2026. So it is better if you pass the exam in 2025 or initial couple of months or 2026 months. Okay, let's take a break, guys. And then we'll take a few questions. So just a quick 5 minutes break and we'll do the Q&A. I'll take your questions then. I shall see you after the break. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, how are we all back after the break? Quick roll call, please. Guys, am I audible? Yes, Kritika. So, questions and answers. We still have 15 minutes to go. Please type your questions on the chat window. I will read and answer them one by one. The chat window is yours. Any questions that you have? Could you please include some questions on earned value management formulas and critical path based in the next session? If you look at the previous class, I had almost a previous session, I had almost 5 to 6 questions from the earned values. But yeah, I included a couple of them in this one as well, but I can include more. Yep, I can do that. But considering the changes, when will be our next session? That's gonna be next week. So yes, I was just trying to, you know, align this Q&A with the format that we will have now. Pinbucket is available in the market. Will it impact the exam if we prepare the exam in a month or so? I don't think that. But for the next ECO, definitely. I'm planning to take the PMI exam end of December. Your suggestions. Revise the book that I suggested you on the last day. All right. Write as many simulations as you possibly can. Uh, yep. Please include Q&A on PA and what is BE. A component of the project is marked as scrapped by the sponsor midway. Will the remaining cost and the schedule allocation be distributed among the remaining project scope? Ideally, it should be. Certificate valid for how many years? 3 years. And if you collect 60 PDUs in those 3 years, business environment, okay, we can include a few. Uh, it is valid for 3 years, Gopal, but if you can collect 60 PDUs in those 3 years, it will be renewed. After paying a fee of $100, initially the PMI had no fees to renew the certificates, but nowadays, since 2021, they take $100 to renew the certificate. How to handle the competing requirements? Can project manager reject the requirement as the general guidelines? The PM should not reject but request a change request. But is this the case for all? What is the main document with which requirements are compared? Project charter, business case, none of those. Harsh. Neither the project charter nor the business case. It is all based on the priorities of the stakeholders. Whenever you have competing requirements or contradicting requirements, you have to see that which stakeholder has more priority. So you prioritize his requirement over the requirement of the other stakeholder. It all comes down to the stakeholder assessment, right? And of course, if you need, uh, you know, if the need comes up where you have to sit with all the stakeholders and build the consensus, you should do that. How can project management plan, PM plan for the contingency reserve? If you have more risks, you keep more contingencies. If you have less risk, you keep less contingencies. Please understand one thing, Ganem. The two components, the contingency reserves and the management reserve. There are no such defined standard that 15% or 20% or 10% of the cost of the project are going to go into those. There is no such defined, and at least not by the PMI. Now, since the contingency reserve is a part of the estimation, so we are estimating the duration, we are estimating the cost. So there are three different components that comes into the picture: the effort, the number of resources, and the risk. Now, that risk part is the known unknown risk part. So the more risk that you are able to identify, You keep the reserves accordingly as a part of your estimation. Over and above that comes the management. Now, again, for the management reserve, there is no such standard for it. It all depends upon how cash rich the organization is, how important your project is for the organization. So, let's say if that's a breakthrough project, the organization may go out of the way to support you in that project, right? If it is not that important project, then mostly you are on your own, right? So there are no such standards defined for that. But then what is the risk appetite? What's the risk threshold of the organization? According to those, they will provide the management reserve. Regarding contract types for the uncertain scope, which needs to be picked, cost reimbursable contracts. If you're expecting the scope to change midway, but sir, the requirements should be in line with the business value and the project objectives. Now, let's talk about it. When you say project objectives, right? How do you determine the project objectives? How do you determine those objectives? Don't you think the requirements of the stakeholders is what defines those objectives of the project? Isn't it? I mean, if you are talking in terms of the business value, then you might refer to the business case in that, if you're talking in terms of that, right? But the objectives overall, at the end of the day, they are based on the requirements of the stakeholders. So you have to go back and check that which stakeholder has, more priority, because your initial question was about contradicting requirements, right? So one document, the business case, is the justification that should we do that project, should we not do that project? Okay. And guess what? Most of the times the project manager is not involved in that discussion. Correct? Now, he only gets the authorities once he gets a signed project charter. The whole idea behind the project charter is to get the authorities, right? All the other things, the high level objectives and high level timelines and high level scope, these are all optional elements. Kill the caps, Kaushik. Kill the caps for me. Can we focus more on power skills and business environment rather than on the process from the exam point of view? Because it's not vast enough like process. You can do it, but then if you the exam pattern, right? What we are saying, the process still will contribute about 41%. Okay. And the people's domain will contribute to what was that? 42 minus 9. How much do we get? 31%, right? Or what? 32%, I guess. 31. Okay. And the business environment is 26%, right? Let me just check that, right? What are the exact numbers? Because the other day, Andrew shared that. Okay. So the people's domain is 33, actually. So people's domain is 33. And the process domain is 41. And the business environment is 26. If you still see the major chunk is still coming from the process domain as compared to the rest. So, and the other thing is that you need to have above target in all three of these areas. It is not that you are below target in one and above target in both and you pass the exam. No, it doesn't work like this, right? You have to have above target in all three. So you cannot straight right, focus more on two domains and less focus on one domain. And you see, when it comes to real life project management, be it agile projects, be it hybrid projects, be it predictive projects, you have to have a very strong knowledge of the technical project management, right? So I believe that the real project management is, is about that those SOPs and those processes. And I'm not saying that you should mug those processes and focus too much on the documentation. I'm nowhere saying that. What all I'm saying is that the whole framework of project management, it is still based on both the things, how good of a leader you are, plus how good you are technically when it comes to the technical project management aspects. So the process domain is here to stay. Okay. Now the business involvement is nowadays is equally important. Nowadays. Any other question? When these changes will be implemented in the exam, I'm planning in Jan 2026. So you should plan and write the exam then in Jan 2026. The new ECU will be applicable from April, and the new exam pattern will be applicable from the July. But in November, the PMI also came up from 1st of November onwards. The PMI came up with a few changes in the exam pattern. Not exactly the ECU changes, but the exam pattern, right? Nowadays, and more than 10 of my participants confirmed that to me who wrote the examination recently in this month, in November, right? They said that in their exam, right? In their exam, there was no question related to the numerical calculations, and there were none from drag and drop and fill in the blanks. So the PMI actually went back to the previous format of asking all the scenario based questions, just like all of these questions were scenario based questions, the ones that I asked you today, right? So focus more on real world scenarios, right? The PMI is not asking questions anymore from fill in the blanks, drag and drop, matching, hotspots. They're not asking those questions. All the MCQs now, okay, since 1st of November. And PMI already started focusing more on adaptive and hybrid projects and less on the predictive part of it. Although the configuration is still the same, the process is still 50%, the people is still 42, and the business environment is still 8. Okay. But they have changed the percentage of the questions that they are asking from these areas between predictive, agile, and hybrids. Good name. Is it best to take the exam online? Yes, go to the exam center and give an online test. I would I would want you not to write the exam from home. I told you the reason in the very first class. I would want you to book the exam at the exam center and write the exam from there. I can take one more question. If you have a question, we still have 2, 3 minutes. No further questions? All right then. The PMBOK 8 teacher professor. Oh, become a member of the PMI. You'll be able to download your own PDF of the PMBOK 8. Come on, Kumar. That's a recorded line that goes on to the YouTube. Seriously, buddy? Who can initiate the change request? The people who are authorized to to raise that. How to handle when requirements are not mentioned in the project charter, but can add value to the. Oh, that is called. You don't take a call on that, right? You just simply, as per the process, you request a change, right? And only once it is approved, you include that change, even if that adds the business value. No gold plate and no scope creep. Stick to the plan. People who are authorized to raise a change request. So you cannot allow anybody and everybody to raise the change request. Yes, Kaushik. Can we have these recorded review sessions if possible? They are really useful. All of them are available on the YouTube. So you can check them there. Otherwise, you can ask for these presentations. I keep sharing those presentations with the team. They can share those with you. Kaushik,
Yeah, sir, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah, actually, I have a question that we have to go for 180 questions in the exam. So and we have only 2 hours 30 minutes, that 20 to 30 minutes what we have. So for each question we have to read as much as fast as possible. For each question what I have counted, it will take around 46 seconds or something like that to go for it. So we have to practice the reading fast also. I think so. That is my.
Absolutely. As an average, you get about 1 minute and 18 seconds to answer a question. So just like you said, if you can read a question is 45 seconds, you still have about 30 seconds to answer the question, right? So yes, you have to develop that practice. And I said that on the first day. It is not easy to keep reading questions for 4 hours and comprehending them and answering them. So that's why you have to practice as many simulations as possible. You have to start building that practice of sitting for long hours and reading those questions. I said that right on the first day. Remember that when was the last time that you sat in a 4 hours exam? It is
Yes.
difficult to sit in a 4 hours exam. That's not an easy job. I agree with you.
Yes, for that purpose, as far as simulation is concerned or mock test is concerned, what has been what is the what in the LMC platform, though it has the option to go for the simulation directly, but point is that it is time bound, and as far as the initial starter, as of if you talk about me, I cannot complete the entire exam,
I'll
and
tell
I
you.
cannot. And another thing is that for the questions for which I have answered, I won't get the result accordingly, because if I won't complete those 180 questions or 180 whatever what are the questions that has been framed in the particular time box, if I won't complete it, they will not give me the right answer. The answer I cannot get it. That is the point.
Yeah, but that's how the real exam is, right? So I'll tell you a strategy here, right? So you have 60 questions and 60 questions and 60 questions, three sets, right? Now, after the first one, you have a 10 minutes break here, and then you have a 10 minutes break here, right? Which is additional 20 minutes. Follow a strategy. Try and complete the first 60 questions in 70 minutes and check it from your watch, right? Because the watch at the PMI is in reverse order, the timer is reverse, all right? So at times you get confused. So start the when you start the exam, check the time on your watch. Although you are not allowed to wear digital watches, this one is not allowed, right? You need to wear the analog watch. Just check the time when you started. Target first 60 questions in the first 70 minutes. Do not keep many questions for review. I have seen this, with a lot of participants. They'll mark a lot of questions for review, and then they are going back and reading the same question. So that takes double the time. Mark only those questions that you are really, really doubtful about, right? So for 60 questions in 70 minutes, then comes a second set again in 70 minutes. Now this is 140 minutes out of 230. And keep 90 minutes for the third session, the third set of 60 questions. Why? Because by this time your brain is already tired. So it starts reading slow and comprehending slow, right? Initially, 140 minutes, your brain is still fresh. 2 hours, 2 hours, 20 minutes, your brain is fresh, right? So you can comprehend really quick. You could answer quick, right? Keep those 90 minutes. See, the time management is the key when it comes to writing the examination. I have seen my participants who attempted only 155 questions out of 180, right? 160 questions out of 180. So what you're doing, you are losing potential 25 marks because you just did not attempt those questions, right? So practice this 70 minutes first set, 70 minutes second set, 90 minutes third set, right? Practice this thing. That should really help you.
And if any question that is not on that which I don't have the answer, I can skip it and go for the next one.
Not just answer anything what you feel like. You cannot keep it, as an
Blank.
empty, right?
Okay.
So you don't know the answer. Select whichever you think could be the most potential answer as per you. Just select that, move ahead. Because there is
Okay.
no point. So if you don't know anything about that question, even if you mark that for review, what you're going to get? The same question and the same options, right?
Okay. 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 Thank you. Thank you, sir.
All right, guys. So that was all for today. And thank you so much for joining in today. We're going to have another session. You want another session? You want a Q&A next week? Yeah? I'll arrange for that. Okay? So the team will send you the link to get registered for that. Thank you so much for today. And I shall see you in the next Q&A now. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. God bless you.
Bye.